Hello, for anyone who's joined in. Hold on just a minute. I'm going to get myself live on Instagram. You have joined my Ask Me Anything. Okay. I'm just waiting for the Instagram feed to go live. This is Shellye Archambeau, and you've joined my monthly Ask Me Anything. So once a month, I make myself available. I answer questions that people have submitted in advance, but I also answer questions that are in the chat. So feel free to add questions into the chat. And I try hard to share the experience I've had running companies, building brands, sitting on boards, coaching folks, etc., mentoring. And this Ask Me Anything is my way of trying to make myself available to be able to share some of the wisdom, the things I've learned. So feel free to ask me anything. If I have advice, I'll share it. That doesn't mean I know everything. And sometimes I'll tell you I'm not going to be very helpful. So you'll always get an honest view in terms from our conversations. All right. It looks like we've joined. The Instagram's feed is live. The Ask Me Anything on YouTube is live. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the questions. So first of all, I have questions that people submitted in advance. But as I mentioned earlier, please, 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 if you have questions, just enter them into the chat. And I will try to come back and scroll through and answer anything that I've missed. And I'm glad to see some folks are joining and they're excited to be here. So that's great. I see people from Texas and people from California. So looks like we've got a good range of people. Okay, so let's jump right into the very first question. In my current firm, there are many hidden processes that aren't discussed or documented openly. At the face of it, everyone is told that one needs to meet targets and deliver to get career advancement. However, in reality, they've hidden processes like a 360-degree feedback, even from stakeholders with whom you never interact with. They do stacked ranking that's influenced by likability and internal transfers using personal contacts. People don't usually reveal these things in the office and only share these things in home parties, cafes, friendly dinners, basically informally and networking. This leaves out introverted and hardworking employees. How do I prioritize my time on these things versus real project work? And also, how will a new employee know these processes before it's too late because HR doesn't share them? Okay, so first of all, every company has formal processes that are documented, shared, known, etc. But they tend to also have informal processes that aren't so much something that is always done, always carried through, but that people understand if they've been there for a while. When it comes down to making sure that you understand what it takes to be successful in your career, a couple things. So one, whenever you take on a new role, make sure you ask, what does success look like? Because you're going to be given basically a set of objectives. Do X, do Y, do Z. And that's fine. But I'm telling you, if all you do is X, Y, and Z, then you are leaving a lot on the table undone to actually help you advance in your career. Because that helps you do your current job. Your objectives are just about your current job. Your objectives have nothing to do typically with whether or not you will be promoted, whether or not people see potential in you, right? All of those things. So when you get your objectives, realize that's just to help you do the job. It's not necessarily to help you build your career, because just because you excel at your job doesn't mean you're going to be promoted. It's just not how it works. So what do you need to do? One, always ask your boss, what does success look like? And you can share, I want to understand because I want to do this job well, but I also want to make sure that I am learning and doing the things I need to do to be able to build a strong career at this company, right? It's fair to let them know that you actually have aspirations. Not everybody does. So have those conversations up front. And that way, when you ask, what does success look like? They can share those things that may not actually be written in the job description, may not be written in your objectives, but that people expect. So that's one. Two, the best way to understand how things work is talk to people who've been there for a while, right? And this doesn't mean you walk up to strangers and say, so tell me how it really works here, right? But this means actually taking the time to develop relationships in the office with people who've been there. And many times, especially if you're introverted, it's like, oh gosh, but I'm not comfortable, right? Just approaching people and making small talk. You don't have to do that. Another way to do it is just by asking for help or offering to help. So if you see someone who's been in the office for a while, maybe they've worked in this company for several years, so therefore have a good perspective. Maybe they are working on a special project or there's something that they're doing. You can always just ask them to say, hey, I know you've got extra work for such and such. Can I be of help? Right? So you can ask for help. The other thing you can do is to ask them for help. And the help that you can ask them for are, I don't know, perhaps you've got a new project or something that you're working on, and you just want to bounce off the approach you're taking. You know, you've been here for a while. Here's the approach I thought I'd take. Do you mind if I just ask you a couple questions? Most people are willing to answer a couple questions if asked in the right way. So the key to many successful, if you will, environments in your career is to really make sure that you're actually establishing relationships with other people within the organization and then trying to learn from them because they've been there, they've experienced things, they've seen things. Every company has a lot of their unwritten rules or hidden processes or things that nobody tells you, but it's helpful to understand. And it's not that they're purposely trying to keep them hidden. It's just that things have been happening for so long, they don't think to document them maybe. So in your own organization where you're finding about all these things, the key is establish relationships within the organization. And once you have those relationships established, then you can ask how things work, right? You can say, hey, is there, help me understand. I've been here for so and so long. Here's my job. Here's what I'm doing. What other kinds of things might help me? Or what else should I know about what's required to get a transfer to another department or to be considered for an opportunity? And I find that people will share when asked in the right way. And then in terms of the new employee, how do they know this before it's too late? Well, everyone, and I always say this, but every individual is responsible for their own career. It would be nice if somebody else were responsible, but they're not. You are. So new employees, when you join organizations, you need to ask the questions and understand, what does success look like? Are there some processes or things I ought to understand, right, that don't exist? Establish relationships, but you have to do all of those things so that you can indeed get a full understanding of what's required to be successful in your company, because every company is different. Next, what advice would you give to a woman of color who doesn't see herself represented in leadership, but who dreams to be an executive? How can she dare to be different yet authentic to her core values while charting the non-traditional path to leadership? So first of all, and this won't surprise you, sorry for banging the table, and this won't surprise you that I said it, is somebody always has to be first. And that can be somebody of color, that can be a female, that can be an immigrant, that can be, you never know, right? But somebody always has to be first. So never look up and think, gosh, just because you don't see yourself doesn't mean that you can't do it. All right, so that's number one. Somebody has to lead, it might as well be you. Second, with regards to keeping true to yourself, right? You should absolutely be true to yourself. And by true to yourself, meaning making sure that you're always acting within your value set. And you should be working for companies that indeed match, right, or values that you understand, you believe in, and that you can operate in. But at the same time, every company has their culture. And the example I like to give is even on myself. I've worked in many different countries. I lived in a foreign country. I lived in Japan. Well, doing business in Japan is different from doing business in the US. So does that mean I change who I am? No, I don't change who I am, but it does mean I need to learn how they do business. I need to learn their culture. It's almost like learning a new language. If I try to always say, well, I'm only going to speak English and I'm actually living in a different country, I'm probably not going to have the best experience right away. You want to take time to actually learn the language. Well, when you join a new company, they have their own language, their own way of doing things. So it's important to understand how they do things. But that doesn't mean that you can't still be true to yourself. Have your integrity, right? Have your values. They aren't different. So as you join new companies, as you're trying to rise, even when you don't see yourself, right? It's okay. Just stay true to yourself and your values, but don't think that there's a cap on it. The other thing I'd encourage you to do is make sure that you are creating relationships with people throughout the organization so that you can find some mentors, find some supporters, find maybe even sponsors, right, as things go along, people that you can learn from. Okay, next question. Oh, and this one's in the chat. If I wish to develop close personal friendships with colleagues, how do I do it fast? Can I ask people if I can visit their house, or can I ask if we can hang out? Will they be annoyed and complain to HR, or will they agree? Okay, so first of all, I'm not sure the whole impetus behind fast, but one of the ways to create relationships with people is actually invite them to things. You have to invite them to your home right away in terms of developing relationships. You can go grab a coffee or go have lunch, right? Those are things that are fine. So they're not too personal. I think coming up to someone and saying, "Hey, can I come over to your house and visit?" That's a bit aggressive, right? They want to get to know you first. So first get to know them. Coffee, lunch, a walk after work, right? Something like that is fine. Um, but make sure that you've worked on showing that there are areas of interest between the two of you. It'd be kind of odd just to walk up to someone that you've never really spent any time chatting with and saying, "Hey, I know we don't know each other, but you want to go to lunch?" I mean, you could. Some people might do that. But a key is to improve your odds that they say yes and they feel comfortable saying yes. So first, just start with the office relationship, invite them to lunch, to a walk, to coffee, right? If you hit things off and you seem like you like each other and you find common interest, you find out you both play tennis, well, then you can say, "Hey, well, maybe sometime we can play tennis together," right? So building a relationship in the office is not any different really from building a relationship outside of the office. You want to indeed find common interest, right? See if you like each other, and then find ways in which you can both spend time that you would both enjoy as you go forward. Okay, next. And by the way, feel free to put questions into the chat. All right, next. What are the main steps towards our journey to a CEO? That's pretty broad. There are a lot of different CEOs of a lot of different industries and a lot of different companies. So I can't tell you, here's how to become a CEO for any company. What I can tell you is as you're building skills and experiences, as you're trying to rise towards a CEO, it's important to have a breadth of experiences. When you're competing for a CEO, you're competing to run a company that has all different elements: financial, admin, engineering, typically some type, or R&D, that has sales, that has marketing, that might have, human resources, that has, right, all operations, right, manufacturing. You never, all kinds of elements within a company. So when they're looking for a CEO, they're looking for people who not necessarily has run every single aspect of the business, but they want to make sure they've actually had experience to run a good part or several parts of the business. So it's important to build a broader base when you're shooting to be a CEO. It's also important to make sure that you actually run P&Ls, profit and loss statements, that you've had jobs where you have responsibility for driving revenue, for delivering profits, right? Managing to a bottom line, because that's a key part of what a CEO has to do. You also want to make sure that you've done jobs where you've managed people to a certain scale. Same thing. Those are all skill sets that they're going to want to see. And then, depending upon your industry or your company, there's probably another set of factors. My biggest advice is if you're in an industry and you want to be a CEO, and maybe it's the financial services industry or it could be manufacturing industry, it doesn't matter. Go look at people who are CEOs in that industry. And it's really easy with LinkedIn. Go and look. What are their backgrounds? What skills, what jobs did they hold? And what path did they take? Right? It's very easy to do the research. And then based upon that, you can build a plan for yourself to be able to get the skills and experiences that you need. All right, here's one coming through the chat. It says, hold on, the camera's blocking it. What kept you motivated as you climbed the corporate ladder? That's a good one. So what kept me motivated is I set goals for myself. And in setting goals, I like to achieve them. So I was motivated by, number one, continuing to work towards something that I wanted. Number two, I was motivated by being able to impact and develop other people, which is something that I personally got a great deal of satisfaction out of. So that kept me motivated. And I like to win. So keeping motivated was working with companies, building teams, and trying to win in the marketplace. But all of those things kept me motivated. If you're finding yourself not motivated, then spend some time asking yourself, what really drives me? Where do I feel that I'm making an impact? Where do I feel good? Right? What brings me intrinsic value, right? Those kinds of, ask yourself those questions, because maybe you're not in the right role or the right situation. And spending time to understand what you actually need might help you find the right role or the right job, etc. But let me also tell you, just because you have to do a series of jobs, and just because I said, yes, I was motivated all the way through, that doesn't mean I loved every single job I had. I didn't. Doesn't mean I loved every single boss I had. I didn't. But I tried to use every single role and responsibility that I had to get as much learning as possible from it. And frankly, even if you have a bad boss, there is something to learn. And what you learn is how to be successful in spite of your boss. Because trust me, here's the bad news. Bad news is you're going to have more bad bosses. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that don't necessarily know how to manage other people well. So don't let them stop your career. Just learn how to be successful anyway. So every time you get into a tough situation, look at it in terms of, okay, fine, I don't want this job forever because I don't necessarily like this job, or I don't like my boss, or whatever it is, but what can I learn from this that I can take forward so it'll make it better, easier, enable me to be more effective later on in my career? And then that keeps you motivated because now you're trying to get something out of it versus just showing up. Okay, let me just check the chat real quick. All right, great. So next question that was pre-submitted, and feel free to put questions in the chat, everyone. Here we go. I recently transitioned to a new role as a career pivot. It's a new industry. As such, due to my lack of direct knowledge and skills in the industry, I'm struggling to get ahead of the steep learning curve. On top of that, I am overwhelmed with a lot of tasks that have tight deadlines with many meetings to attend. So much so that I do not have time or energy to focus on deepening my skill sets. How can I overcome this? Okay. This is about prioritization. All right. So most people have more on their plate than they think they can get done in the time they have allocated. So therefore, it's really important to learn how to prioritize. Look at how you are measured, right? Those are the objectives that you were given. Look at what you need to do to be successful in being able to achieve those objectives. So for you, learning more about the industry is required in order for you to be more successful in achieving your objectives. Therefore, when you think about prioritization, don't put that at the bottom of the list, because your other aspects of what you need to do are dependent upon that. So you need to raise that up in the priority. And what that may mean is there might be times that perhaps you get invited to lots of meetings, maybe get invited to a meeting that perhaps someone else can brief you on. Maybe that particular meeting isn't critical for you, right? Again, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. As you have tasks that need to get done, I can't tell if you're an individual contributor, if you're a manager, or if you've got peers. But again, try to get help from others so that you can do what you need to do faster. One of the things that I like to say is to remember that no matter what job you have, somebody else has probably done that job before. So go find them, talk to them, learn from them so that you can get up that learning curve faster and don't have to learn everything yourself. So find those people within your own organization. Or if your role is a role that exists in other industries, find people in other industries who have done your job. But trust me, talking to others who have been there, done that, you'll probably be able to pull some tips, some techniques, right? Some steps that you can take to actually speed through and do some of the things that you need to do faster, which will free up time for you to spend learning the industry. Next one. Just checking the chat. I recently pivoted to a new role where I like the team, but the work doesn't really excite me. I'm currently in a sustainability ESG role at a bank. While I want to work in ESG, the day-to-day work does not interest me. How can I make a more informed decision about what is the right role for me? Okay, here's where it's important to talk to people. So if you're doing this job in a bank, ESG, I'm sure you're not the only one in the department. And if you like ESG, then start talking to people throughout the department that you're in about what they do, what their day-to-day looks like. And this is a great thing to do over a cup of coffee, right? Or at lunch, et cetera. You can just invite people to say, listen, I'm new into this role into ESG, and I'd just love to understand what the different roles and responsibilities are kind of across the department. Can I buy you coffee? Right? And just talk about da 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 da, right? That's the way of kind of doing this. Also, you don't have to stay limited within your own company. ESG is an area that many companies are focused on. There are law firms focused on it. There are consulting organizations focused on it, right? There's just lots. So again, just start talking to people. I bet you, I haven't looked at it, but there's probably even some professional networks and groups that have arisen in ESG. So go do some research and see if there are. Maybe there's a professional group or organization that you could actually join and become part of. And you can learn from, again, other people that are in that group about what kinds of things they do. And that will help you shape an understanding for what kind of role you may want to actually play in this space. In the meantime, the work that you're doing, you're saying it doesn't interest you. Figure out why and if there's a way to reframe it. And because I don't know what you're doing, it's hard for me to give you an example here. But what I mean by that is, let's say what you're doing is collecting data from, maybe you're just the data collector and you analyze it and you share perspectives, right, to other people, so that you feel that you're more like, a machine than bringing a lot of creativity to it. All right, I'm making it up. That could be it. Well, now reframe it. Reframe it in terms of, okay, I need to collect data, right? I need to analyze data, but what are other people doing with ESG and data? Do some research. Maybe there's some new ways and new ideas that you can actually bring to the organization about how to leverage the data, or maybe new data, or how to use it to identify opportunities, et cetera. Right? So challenge yourself a little bit, because if you're not excited about it, you're probably not putting a whole lot of positive energy into it. And when that happens, people see it, right? You don't want them to see you bored and not interested. So figure out how to make it more interesting for now until you figure out what it is that you want to do. All right, I saw a question come through on the chat. What advice would you give to anyone early in their career that's an ICE independent contributor and wants to get to the next level as a manager? So start acting like a leader. And what I mean by that is you don't have to be a manager to be a leader. A leader just means that you tend to step forward. So if there's a project going on, you sign up to kind of be the coordinator or the spokesperson. You're the one that volunteers to pull people together, right, to get something done. Maybe within your own team, there's some initiatives. Key is to step forward, show that you are a leader so that people can envision that you can be a manager. Many organizations, individual contributors, are what I call the floor leaders. Folks who know what's going on, who pull people together, who others go to for advice and counsel. You want to be one of those. Those are the people that management taps to become the next managers. Second thing to do is to make sure that your boss knows you want to be a manager, that that's what you're aspiring to. And the way to share that is just to share it just like that. Let your manager know, by the way, one day I really want to manage people. Do you think I have the potential to do that? Just ask the question. Odds are they're going to say yes. Because potential, everybody's got potential. You wouldn't be working for the company if you didn't have potential. So when they say, yes, you have potential, you say, great. And then ask them for advice. So, what advice would you have for me? What experiences should I go gain? Or what do you think I ought to be doing to be able to demonstrate that I'm ready to actually be a manager? Right? Ask for their help. And then what you're doing, in essence, is co opting them to actually help you get there because you now ask them for advice. And when they give you the advice, you go and take it. And then you check in. Hey, you suggested I do X, Y, and Z, and I did X, Y, and Z, and here's what happened, right? What do you think I should do next? And then you checkpoint. Am I getting closer, right? How would I compete? Did I mean all those things? So, Unapologetically Ambitious, right? The book I wrote, it's all about being intentional about what it is that you want, making sure others know, but in the right way. Don't walk into your boss and say, I want to be a manager next year and you better make it happen, right? No, you don't do that. But you ask them for help in the process. And when you do that, they're now paying attention to you because they know that's what you want to do. So when a role comes up, they'll actually think about you. Doesn't mean you'll get the job, but they will at least think about you. So you'll be in consideration. I can't tell you the number of people that aspire to a role. They don't tell anybody. Role gets filled. They're super disappointed. But frankly, others didn't even know they wanted that role. So you have to let people know what it is that you want to do, but let them know in the right way by sharing your aspirations, asking for their feedback and their suggestions as you build your career. All right, next. All right, this is a long one. I'm going to shorten this a little bit. So I'm a mother of 3, and I have over 15 years of professional experience. And I was even an executive at a tech startup prior to COVID. Then the pandemic happened. My employment was impacted. I spent 2 years out of work, and now I'm trying to find a position. But the challenge is people don't seem to value the experience I have and what I've done. So right now I'm accepted a position that only requires 5 years of relevant experience. I was excited to get my foot in the door, and I've continued to actively apply and network, but I still haven't been able to secure a position that represents my work history. I've advocated for more work. I've completed several career development certifications. I've applied for feedback from HR professionals and recruiters on my resume. I'm trying to be unapologetically ambitious per your book and be vocal about my goals, but I've not been able to attract the attention of hiring managers. How can I advance my career when I seem to be in a holding pattern? And why isn't my experience gaining traction? All right, that's a tough one. It's a tough one because I know I'm getting the summary, but I don't know all the details. So what I would tell you is a couple things. One, in the startup that you worked for, even though your employment was impacted, go and reach out to all the people that you had relationships with at that startup because they knew you. They knew the quality of the work. They knew what you've done, and try to use them to make introductions, to refer you, right, to be your references as you're moving forward. The second, I know you accepted a position that was below your experience level, and that's what you're doing now. But hopefully that means that you should be able to nail this job. So make sure that you are hitting this job out of the park. So maybe even if you can't jump immediately to where you are, to where you want to be, you can just move up those steps a whole lot faster because of the experience that you're bringing. So make sure that you're not shortchanging the job trying to jump. Because if jumping isn't working, then at least get on a moving escalator so that you could just move up the steps a whole lot faster. But the key starts with really nailing whatever the job is, the job that you've currently got. I'd also suggest in the space that you're in, I can't tell what discipline, in the space that you're in, get involved in professional organizations. And I say Asians, I don't mean you have to join multiple. I mean, figure out which one would be the best one and pick one. Because now you'd be part of a group of peers, of others that are in the kind of jobs you want. People who are in the jobs that you want get calls for those same jobs. So I'm gonna make it up. Let's say you're a VP of sales. VPs of sales get tapped all the time for VPs of sales roles in other organizations. So if they know about you, what you're capable of doing, they might refer you, right? Same is true for any other role. So start building relationships with people who were at the level that you were in terms of before. So those would be my two pieces of advice. One, nail the job you've got and work yourself out of that job as quickly as possible towards an overall promotion. So that's one. And then two, establish relationships and connections so that you can leverage other people who are in the roles that you want to hopefully recommend you, and tap into the peers that you had before at the other organization before the pandemic itself, so that they can open some doors for you. But I know it's hard. Next, why is it so difficult to change careers? Most companies seem to want candidates and or future employees to already have some experience for the role in which they are applying. Yes, they do. And the reason they do is because whenever a hiring manager is hiring someone, they're hiring someone that they need to be successful so that their team and their organization can be successful. So if you have experience, they believe the odds are higher that you will be successful in the role. So that's why they always want it. And that's understandable. The key is to be able to explain based upon the other sets of experiences and education and skill sets that you've got, that you are actually a good fit for this role. And here's how you reduce the risk of not having experience in the particular role. So I'll make this up. Let's say I'm in marketing and I want to get into sales, right? Sales is completely different. I've never sold before. But one of the key jobs of marketing is to really understand what the needs and requirements are of your target market, and to be able to position your product, your solution, whatever it is, in a way in which the company wants to buy, because that's what you use to create all your marketing material, et cetera. So in essence, a key part of sales, right, you do the research, is understanding what are the needs of your customer and being able to position what you're selling in those terms. So see, I've actually done it. I just haven't done it on commission. But I'm confident that I can do it because I've done X, Y, Z, right? And you share what you've done and how that fits. So the key is to take your experience and show people how, even though it's not a direct relationship, it is related in a way that will ease their mind about the risks they're taking and putting you in that role. All right. Hope that helps. Okay, those are the questions I have. At least they came in advance. Let me give it a couple seconds on the chat. I'm checking YouTube. No additional questions there. Any more questions on the Instagram Live? Sliding up and seeing. Hey, thanks everybody for joining. I appreciate it. Give me a minute. I'm just scrolling through. And no, I don't think I see any questions. So with that, what I will say is remember that no matter what's going on, you own your career. I said it earlier during this session, but I really mean it. You do. So take responsibility for it. Seek help, which I appreciate people joining and asking questions and trying to get it, but also reach out to people who are doing the jobs you have, the one you have right now, because you don't get the next opportunity until you actually do a great job at the job you have. So leverage what others have experienced, learn from them so that you can really do a good job at the job you have to position yourself for that next step and that next role. And thank you all very much for joining. And with that, I'm scrolling through one more time. Oh, wait. I just saw a question come through. What is most important for managers to do today to remain relevant as we look to climb the ladder? Make sure that your skills are staying current. And what I mean by that is, in the industry that you're in, pay attention, whether it's to how different technologies are being used or to new approaches that are being brought forward. You never want to end up with that person who's always able to share, well, here's how we've always done it. What people want in new leaders are people who are going to bring both new ideas, but also able to galvanize and bring teams together who create new ideas. Because No company successful unless they have new ideas, that they are launching new markets, new products, new target segments, right? Whatever it might be. So they look for executives who are adding to that overall vision, adding to that opportunity. So the key to stay relevant is to make sure that you're staying connected with what's going on in your industry from a technology standpoint, from a process standpoint, from a themes, right? From approach, from practices, whatever it might be. As I like to say, homework doesn't stop with school. You always do homework. Homework is just making sure that you're always prepared for what it is you're facing. And I do homework to this day. All right. I think that's it. All right. Thanks very much, everybody. I really appreciate your joining and hope you'll join me next month. I do this every month on Mondays and I announce it on LinkedIn and Instagram. So, or on my YouTube channel, feel free to sign in and sign up and you'll get notification. And I look forward to next month's questions. Bye, everybody.